Hello, good morning and good
Good
afternoon,
morning.
everyone. This is amazing because I'm able to see good morning to you too, right from New York. So, we're running the first LinkedIn Live from our New York office. This is fantastic. I'm so happy to have you, Ashley, on this session. For this LinkedIn Live session, it's really special.
Yeah.
Ashley, I can call you my LinkedIn friend. I am calling you my inspiration. Endless content on LinkedIn that is so thoughtful, that is going beyond just the content, but also the commenting. If you don't know Ashley, you better connect and try to figure out how she does it all, because I don't know. But we're going to talk about Ashley and her new book today and everything about the human centered marketing. So, Ashley, could you introduce yourself to the audience on LinkedIn today?
Sure. Very excited to be your inaugural New York office guest. Welcome to the US. It's a great spot. I'm Ashley. I am a marketer, writer, and speaker by day, and a singer, actor, and fitness fiend by night. And I am currently in our lifecycle marketing org at Atlassian. So, all the things, a little bit of personal and professional there.
Fantastic. Well, there is a lot of personal stuff. And again, I don't know how she does it all, but she can do acting too. And I've seen you on stage. I mean, this is also one of the things like why I like following you because your content is different. Your content both is very professional for marketers, but also empowering other people to understand what's working on stage as well. So you better follow Ashley because we're not going to talk about stage performances today. We're going to talk about marketing, the human centered marketing. Everything is just so AI nowadays. We had a dinner yesterday with Elena Vandenberg from Chili Piper, and that was one of the topics that we've discussed. Now, when AI is taking over, what can we do that we stand out? Because all of us can use AI. We can be everywhere at the same time and nowhere at the same time. So let's start with the basics. Ashley, what is human centered marketing?
So the funny thing is it's supposed to be what marketing is in general. Somebody, when I posted the book announcement, was like, "Oh, it's sad that now we have to have human-centered marketing as a thing." And I'm like, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
I don't think that should be a thing that we have to have, but it is, in terms of a phrase and a mindset. So I actually started college as a musical theater major, and then I had a medical issue with my vocal cords, and so that led me to decide that I needed to change my major. And so somehow I managed to find my way into a marketing 101 class. I opened the textbook and the first line said, "Marketing is about people." I shut the textbook and I declared my major. And from then on, I've been a marketer, right? And we forget about the humans behind the screen. At the end of the day, marketers need to be matching problems with solutions for humans. It's not about getting leads, it's not about chasing prospects, it's not about locking down a deal. Like we use such adversarial language when we talk about our audience. And at the end of the day, it's really about building that trust, having curiosity, being transparent, and having an equal exchange of value for people. Like all of and I think that's the thing again within the age of AI, this idea that we can do more, but we're so disconnected from the people and we keep putting tools and technology in between the people we're actually supposed to serve.
Yeah. And when we're speaking human centered marketing, we're in B2B space, both of us. When we're saying human centered marketing, it is still kind of companies selling to companies. So how do you balance that part of companies feeling human enough, and then where do people come in for that to become
Yeah.
human centered?
So at the end of the day, companies are made up of humans, right? Like you don't actually have Dream Data selling to Atlassian. You have Laura selling to Ashley. At the end of the day, you and I have to get on a call together if we're going to do business. And it's funny, I actually saw, I think it was Jen Allen Newth was talking about this idea that we're replacing sellers with AI, like this concept of the AI BDR, the AI SDR. And she's like, I actually think we should have AI buyers. We should let AI do all of the research before bringing in the humans. And I actually love that flip where the humans tell the
Yeah.
AI, here's all the problems we have, here's our pain points. Go out there, cull through all of the information that we don't actually need to know that doesn't match our criteria. And then when it comes time to buy, two humans get on the call, not automate
Yes.
all of this cold outreach and put an AI at the beginning of the process, right? Like it's kind of backwards. So
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing is remembering that humans are the ones that make up the companies. Companies don't exist by themselves;
Yeah.
they have humans. I think the second piece of this is people trust people like themselves, and people buy from people they trust. And so, as a company, that balance of how you show up as a brand, not just the brand promise, the vision from a selling standpoint, but putting your people forward. And I think that's also part of what's behind this, trend of the founder-led brand. Everybody thinks, okay, we're just going to swap the company brand for a founder brand. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, you're you're kind of thinking in the right direction to elevate the people, but you really have to be thoughtful about how someone shows up to build that trust. And
Mhm.
founders or executives are not always the most credible or the most trustworthy with certain audiences because they're actually too far
Yeah.
removed from the day-to-day business or they're too far removed from the problem space. So there's some interesting balances there that I talk about in the book that it's kind of counterintuitive in terms of who you put forward and how you think about connecting the right humans on the buyer side with the right humans on the seller side.
Yeah. And how do you strike that balance? How do you choose which people should be out in the brand and which people should
Yeah.
be behind?
So I have a whole series of chapters on this, and it was actually part of my inbound discussion. And full disclosure, Laura is featured in the book as an excellent internal influencer. You actually strike the right balance, and so I would say, you're telling everyone to follow me. I'm like, follow Laura. She has great insights. She has great data, and then she's also a perfect example of someone who's doing it right. So I do talk a lot in the book about subject matter experts, internal and external influencers, and then true thought leaders. And so understanding
Okay.
what you're trying to achieve, who you're trying to build that trust with, over what time horizon and what metrics. And so a lot of people get it wrong where they think being a thought leader just means having a fancy title. And they also equate thought leadership with driving leads in the short run. And I'm like,
Mhm.
nope, you've actually got it all wrong. That's not what they're meant to do. Thought leaders are actually meant to help the audience think and act in a new direction. And so, in a lot of cases, there's super smart practitioners in the organization who are very close to the problem space and have a ton of expertise, but they haven't built a strong audience. And so, they might actually be the perfect people for the company to elevate because they can build trust with those users and the champions in the buying process. In contrast, internal and external influencers, they help you reach new audiences. And so they have that strong
Mhm.
credibility, but they're not really iterating on the problem space or iterating on the solution. They tend to be more, championing tactics or championing strategies that are existing. And so they can help you reach new audiences, but with existing content and ideas. And then subject matter experts,
Mhm.
they have that deep credibility, particularly with peers in their level. And so they're great for things like editorial contributions, demos. A lot of these folks, and again, I know you and I sit in SaaS. So a lot of these folks sit in your solution engineering organization or your customer success organization. They don't really want to build a huge external audience, but they're actually great one-on-one with customers. They like to do demos, they can do sales training.
Mm.
So as you think through who to elevate, that question of which problems are you trying to solve in the marketing mix? What types of audiences are you trying to reach? And are the problems, core existing problems, or are they new problems and new solutions? That's how you think about matching those different types of creators with the different types of problems.
Yeah, very interesting. There's so much to unpack. There are a couple of things. So, time perspective is interesting for me to discuss because you mentioned what is it and when do you want to achieve it when you build that type of a strategy, but also how does it tie in into the whole marketing mix when you're trying to just start it off. So, what to expect time wise, and when is the right time to add in those various people to get your marketing being more human
Yeah.
centered?
I mean, I would say right from the beginning, you need to be focused on human-centered marketing. So, from a core principle and like first principles mindset, it's about trust. And I really love the work, and I do cite this work in the book from Frances Frey. She's a researcher at Harvard, and she talks about the three elements: logic, empathy, and authenticity. Those are the key elements of trust. And so logic is, is your judgment sound? Do people trust you to make the right decisions? Do they think you know what you're talking about? Authenticity is the feeling that people can see and experience the real you. And then empathy is the sense that you care about the outcomes for the other person and that you want what's best for the other person. And so if we think about that from a marketing perspective, it's not, I want to sell you something. It's not, I have a revenue goal. Therefore, I'm going to tell you what I think you need to hear. And I'm going to do things that only benefit me. So if we think about this again in your space from an attribution perspective, we all know that nobody goes on a linear journey right down a funnel, right? So this idea that I'm going to force you into owned properties because it's easier for me to track so that I can meet my lead quota and I can hit my number, right? None of that is human centered. All of that is technology centered. It's about cookies and tracking pixels and spreadsheets and dashboards. Nowhere in there is there a human, right? So if we go back to
Yeah.
that, those core elements of trust, I need to demonstrate that I understand your problem. I need to show you that my solution actually solves your problem. If my solution doesn't solve your problem, or you don't actually have the problem, me badgering you and harassing you until you finally are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
fine, I'll take the meeting," or "Fine, I'll buy the stupid product." That doesn't serve anyone, right? And so that damages the, empathy and authenticity, and it damages the trust. And then it also damages the logic because now you think I don't know what I'm talking about because I've actually mismatched the
Yeah.
problem and solution, right? So all the way around, this idea that we can kind of force people into buying or trick people into buying goes back to that core issue where you're missing the trust, and goes back to that core
Yeah.
issue where you're not focusing on what's best for the humans behind the screen because you're chasing your lead spreadsheets or your revenue dashboards.
Yeah. And in that type of content building, how far off your actual core problem you're solving can you go? Because your problem, and just let me get you into this funnel because you care about attribution, is just so narrow. Because more or less, no marketers we speak with are looking for an attribution solution, but they're looking to solve some other problems that are really, really close. But how far off would you go with your content to cover and become a little bit more human centric to show that you're solving similar problems?
So I think this goes back to one of the tactical, a couple of tactical things I talk about in the book. Two in particular. One is content depths. So addressing the core of your ideas at the conceptual, strategic, and tactical level. And what I find is that a lot of people are very focused on creating tactical buy intent content. So this is the other piece of it, is intent. So there's trust or affinity intent, buy intent, use intent, help intent, and then true learn intent. And so what I find is that most people are so focused on creating basically tactical buy intent content or tactical use intent content. So your problem is you can't track the customer journey. Therefore, you can use Dream Data in these 5 ways to track the customer journey, right? And it's like, hey, thank you, but I fundamentally don't understand why my attribution model is broken, right? Oh, okay. You need to pop all the way up to the strategic or conceptual level and true learn intent content where we think more holistically about audience journeys and metrics and attribution in general, right? So once you start looking at how you can match those things, you'll start to see that you can come up with a program that's not, it would be very random to suddenly start talking about, how to water your garden. Like, what plants that you can winterize, right? It's like, what, that has nothing to do with anything, right? But I do think that you can bring in elements, other places where you measure, right? So, for example, I tend to use a fitness analogy in this case.
Yeah.
Somebody else, I think it was Sam Queenley, talked about basically from an attribution perspective. He also is very into fitness, and he was like, it's kind of like asking a personal trainer, like, which bicep curl, like literally which rep made you fit. Like, no one would measure it that way, right? And so it's kind of the same thing in the audience journey. So literally, exactly which LinkedIn ad is the one that, converted this person, right? So you can bring in those elements. I also talk a lot about baking, and, how baking relates to content strategy and the audience journey. So you can bring in those elements, and not in the awkward, like, I got engaged this weekend. Here's what it taught me about B2B marketing. It's like, it's too much,
Yeah.
So you do have to experiment a little bit. And I think this is where that authenticity piece of the trust equation comes in. It feels authentic for me to talk about fitness and equating, fitness with content depths or fitness with the audience journey. It feels authentic for me to talk about baking and the idea of having the right ingredients as you think about building the playground, not a funnel to
Yeah.
track the audience journey, right? So um, it is hard to find the balance. There's not a specific, you know, do these 5 things and here it is. But the content depths and matching those with the intent, I think helps give you that shape of how far off from the core problem you can get. And it's like, you can do conceptual learn intent content, or you can do strategic trust intent content, not just tactical buy intent or tactical use intent content. Ooh, hit my
Love that. Yeah. I like that because it goes through different layers as well of how and what type of content you're creating. But when you're saying content, how much of that is what's on your website versus to what's in your ads and what's on what people are saying on LinkedIn who work at the companies or are influencers?
So this is interesting because you do have to map narratives to assets, assets to channels, and then channels, audiences. All of that is a mix. What I normally do, and I talk about this in the book as kind of an exercise, what a lot of people do is they basically assign intent to a channel, or they think that certain channels are aligned to a specific funnel stage, and that doesn't make sense. So for example,
Mhm.
social media is considered a top of funnel channel. And I again, I just struggle when we talk about the funnel, because it's like, again, you're a perfect example of this. You frequently show your own deals in Dream Data and tracking the deal cycle, the influencers or the contacts, different touch points throughout the journey. Where in the funnel is that? Like, no, that's tactical use intent content, right? Like, that's what it is. So I think a lot of people get confused because they basically try to match, like, they just say like, oh, the blog is for top of funnel, or, you know, with the exception of something like a product tour where it's buy intent content. That is what it is. But channels don't inherently have an intent. Content does not inherently have an intent. We as marketers put an intent on each asset and in each channel, and you can mix and match
Yeah.
those channels. So the big thing is to go and look at what your audience is doing. Is your audience consuming tactical use intent content on YouTube? Great. Orient your
Mhm.
YouTube channel towards that. Is your audience consuming, conceptual learn intent content or strategic learn intent content on your website? orient your landing pages toward that. So a perfect example, Atlassian has a team playbook. We're all about collaboration, teamwork, communication, better ways of working. So the team playbook actually includes conceptual, strategic, and tactical, I would say learn intent and use intent content. Regardless of whether or not you buy our products, we do have tutorials and templates that use our products as part of the playbook, but you cannot buy any of our products or use any of our products, and you can still get value from that playbook. So, as an example, there's
Yeah.
the DAISY. So, it stands for driver, approver, contributor, and informed. And it's basically a decision model. So, you know who owns the project, who has to be included, who actually approves it. That would be something that I would call like tactical use intent content. It's a play you should be running. In contrast, the health monitor, that would be kind of conceptual or strategic level content where you can run this play to understand the baseline health of your team across a bunch of different attributes. Again, we have Confluence templates for both of those, but you don't have to use Confluence to get value from those.
Hmm.
So the playbook is ungated. It's not considered lead gen in the traditional way that marketers think of it, but it gives us a way to build that trust, helps people think of us from a brand perspective, and also influences how they think about how they work. It's true learner content. They can
Yeah.
share it, they can use it, etc. But they don't necessarily have to buy. So that's an example of something where you think about, matching what the audience is looking for with the intent of the asset and how it shows up in each channel.
Yeah. And I have an example from our own usage of understanding which content lands in which pipeline stage. You can definitely map that. But the problem is that it can also split out and figure out, as you're saying, some of your thought leader content might be useful for clients to be closed as new business deals as well in that stage if you were to try to put them into the funnel. But our example was when we started looking into our content journeys, which means which URLs literally have helped clients either to come top of funnel, become SQLs, become new business. And we always thought that our community button at the very end of the page is user based. That is for clients or for companies that are in active trial with Dream Data. And then our review of our content showed that actually pretty much top of funnel in the middle between MQL and SQL, that's where people go click the community button and either log in or check out. It's like, okay, they've got a community. There is some contribution to that. We will have help as well. So what we did out of that, actively took that button up on the page because seems like people care about it. So it is a balance for sure to figure out what's actually working and what you think is a part of top of funnel might not be.
Well, and when we talk about pricing, for example, pricing is traditionally considered a bottom of funnel or a purchase level conversation. But if I need to go get budget to even start a conversation, I need a baseline knowledge of pricing. So this comes up. I saw one of my now former colleagues was posting about this, and she was basically complaining on LinkedIn. She's like, all of you that gate your pricing, let me explain to you how annoying it is when I'm trying to set up my budgets. And so it's like, this is the other issue with the funnel basically doesn't acknowledge people in a buying cycle until we as marketers like acknowledge them. Like it's such a company centric mindset. It's like, oh, you're off doing your own thing, you're doing your research, you're trying to find pricing, you're trying to build trust and affinity with a brand, and I don't, as a marketer, acknowledge that you're doing those things until you fill out a form and officially become in the funnel. And it's like, no,
No,
Laura has
no,
been researching, talking, making connections, reading
no.
content, like forming an opinion, even about the problem space, right? Like, I remember the very first time I implemented Marketo. This was like, whatever, 12 years ago at this point. And yeah, a
Decades.
decade when marketing attribution, like marketing automation platforms were first becoming a thing. And so just the amount of like, I didn't realize you could do this. And I didn't know that this was even a
Mhm.
thing. I had to go get educated about the problem space. But the way I
Yeah.
was doing that was through a solution because basically Marketo and HubSpot and, those early map providers were inventing the category and educating marketers about what was possible. So again, I just don't even know where in the funnel I would be when I'm
Yeah.
just starting to educate myself about the problem space. But it was because our CEO had gone to some meetup with other CEOs and basically came to my VP and said, "This person adopted this. Should we get one of these?" And so she comes to me and she's like, "Do we need this?" And I'm like, I don't even know what are these words? Like, what are these letters? I don't even know what this
Yeah.
stands for, right? So it's an interesting debate about like when what counts as different funnel stages from a marketing perspective versus what the audience is doing. The audience, nobody wakes up and is like, I shall be in the consideration phase today. Like it's a very, yeah. And so your
Yeah.
community button thing, I think is a fascinating comment of like everybody keeps clicking that,
Yeah.
even when we wouldn't think that they are using that. Yeah.
Exactly. If we were to take it back to technology and a bit of AI, how do you balance tech, because you need
Yep.
to, and that human part of your creative and being human centric for your buyers as well? So, what are the best practices
Yeah.
for the balance?
I would say the humans need to keep the thinking. And that's a big area, right? We're seeing that a lot right now with like AI generated content. We see it a lot on LinkedIn and posts. People are trying to outsource the thinking. You can't have a ghost thinker. You can have a ghost writer. You cannot have a ghost thinker. And so I think that there's a
Mhm.
lot of opportunity for AI to help you do the execution, but the AI should not be doing the thinking for you. You shouldn't just come in and be like, hello, AI. What should I say to Laura to sell something to her? It's like, who is Laura? What problems does Laura have? Why do I think I should sell something to Laura? Has Laura already bought in the past? Like AI can't know that. Um, so at the
Mhm.
most basic level, I think AI is super helpful for things like turning long video clips into short video clips and turning long form content into short form content,
Yep.
right? Like that's a super basic way to use it to help streamline your workflows, efficiencies. Um, if you're going to kind of a more advanced level, so I actually used it to help me prep for a debate that I did at Inbound.
Mm.
And I'm very familiar with both sides of the argument. So I was basically like, I think I can argue with myself, but also get the AI to argue with me. And so what I used it to help me do was poke holes in my arguments. And so I would say, like, I'm arguing these points. Is there anything I've missed? Or I asked it to pull, I understood the shape of what I wanted to pull. And it would have taken me forever to basically individually Google what is the revenue of this? What is the revenue of that? And so
Yeah.
instead, I was like, hey, pull the top 15, market cap of companies like this and this because I'm trying to support this argument. And so that was perfect. It helped me do the research. But if I generally just
Mm.
went to AI and said, like, make an argument for why, corporate marketers are better at creating content than independent creators. It can do that, but it's not going to pull any original thinking, right? So that from a balance perspective, I think the humans have to keep the thinking. I think we will see
Mhm.
more and more AI do a better job at the execution. And then in the middle, there's that blend of obviously the prompting and the editing and the shaping the research and the shaping of what needs to get pulled out from an execution standpoint. But the other big piece of this is thinking through like getting all of those customer insights. Again, you can use AI to listen in on your gong calls and summarize it, right? And that's a great thing. But if you don't have a human asking the right questions or staying
Yeah.
curious or building a connection where somebody feels like, you know what, I trust this person. I'm going to just be honest with you, the product's not working for me. Like, I'm just really struggling with this or that, right? How often do you get on a customer call and the customer just gives you basics of like, yes, when we logged in, it was a little confusing to try to, set up a project or something. And it's like, I mean, okay, but what's really happening? That requires trust and it requires a human being curious to ask. AI can summarize the call. AI can look through
Yeah.
20 customer calls and pull out the patterns to say, hey, man, This one part of
Correct.
your onboarding is really confusing. But the human getting other humans to say those things that AI can then pick up and turn into a pattern, that's the hard part.
I love that. And we actually had a question about that as well. So I think you kind of covered it. So how to differentiate the content now where there's a perception that everything is AI, what are the ways to win in the AI era? But maybe if we were to flip this question to what you answered before, kind of how do you stand out as that human that people want to buy
Yeah.
from?
So there's two things I'll say about this. One, again, if we go back to that trust model, that authenticity piece, part of that authenticity is transparency. And I actually think, and Christopher Pinn, Katie Robert, and Trust Insights, I profile them in the book. Um, their radical transparency actually helps build trust. So they use AI a lot. And one of the things that I think Chris does in particular that's amazing, at the top of anything that he writes, he'll say, I used this specific tool, this specific version of the tool to generate 50% of this article. Or the human wrote 30% of this. All of the video scripts were generated by AI. So I actually think acknowledging that you are using
Mhm.
AI helps build trust that you are a human. If I constantly tell you 20% of this is AI, I used AI to generate these slides, I used AI to write this content. For the times when I don't use AI and it's me as a human, you can actually trust that I'm
Yeah.
being truthful with you because I've been so open about using when I've used AI. So I think that's the first thing.
Mhm.
The second thing that I'll say is developing that personal brand and showing up as yourself. So, putting images from an event that are literally you showing up on video, doing live streams like this, right? Chris actually talks about this, noting that one of the things that AI really struggles with is if I take a drink of water right now,
Uh-huh.
AI really struggles with that because it's very random. And it's like there's
Uh-huh.
no predictability of when I pick up the water, how I hold it, how long I drink, how my throat moves when I swallow the water, right? So throwing in a bit of randomness, particularly on video,
Mhm.
having those vocal fillers, the way that I move in and out like this, right? Like that's very unique to me. You and I have different postures as we're sitting here. The tone of our voices is very different. The way our facial expressions work is different. And so, even showing up on video, showing up on podcasts. So, Notebook LM, for example, I've started kind of playing around with that. And it's so fascinating because it's AI generated human voices. And on one hand, they actually sound really good. On the other hand, there's some quirks if you listen to it. So, for example, you reacting, the way that you reacted to me talking, you were sitting back, you were nodding. Now you've leaned forward and you're smiling. Vocally, humans will say things like, mm-hmm, oh, right.
Uh-huh.
Like we vocalize when we talk. So the Notebook LM has like patternized that. And so they end up with this, they'll do it in the ones that I've listened to. The go-to vocalization agreement is mm, mm,
All
all
the
the
time.
time. And so it's so weird because like on one hand, humans do that where you say like we're like but it's the exact intonation. Every time it's mm, and it's
That's
like
funny.
humans don't do that. So I think that's a big thing in terms of standing out. It's like actually show up as a human. Put pictures of your
No.
face out there. Put your voice and your likeness out there because yes, video is getting better, but there, there's something about when an actual human shows up. It's in the eyes, it's in the face, like the Duchenne, I think is what it's called, the Duchenne smile, where if you're genuinely smiling and engaged, it reaches up to your eyes. And so you could tell a fake smile because it doesn't go to the eyes. There's something about it with humans that like we can
That's funny.
connect, you know? And then the last thing I'll say, and this goes back to your community point, uniting the online and offline touch points. One thing that people say to me frequently when they meet me in person is that I am the same person online as I am in
Yeah.
person. They feel like they know me. They feel like I am myself. And that's because I am. I'm not putting something else in my writing or in my presentations that is not actually legitimately in me. And so when you meet me in person, it feels like a continuation of the conversation, and it feels like I am who I am.
Yeah.
And so bringing in those in-person touch points, the dinners, the in-person events, that's the other opportunity to really connect and make those relationships so that when you see me online, it's like, "Oh, yeah, of course Ashley wrote this. Of
Interesting.
course Ashley has actually done these things," because she just wouldn't try to fake us out. Like, I've met her before.
Yeah.
She's just not that kind of person, right? So that's the other piece of this
Yeah.
that I think the in-person touch points do matter.
I think this new for a lot of companies, and most of the companies are just adopting AI and not even thinking the step forward. That dinner that we had yesterday with Elena, it was one of those things where I listen to her and I think, wait, you're so far ahead than everybody else is thinking. Because the reason Chili Piper is doing all those dinners and all those events and inviting C-level or inviting marketers to dinners is because this is the part you cannot change with an AI. If you
Yeah.
invited your people with some of the other people to dinners, they connected differently, especially if there are the right people in the room and the right discussions are being sparked. And you who are online are the same person here at the dinner table, that gives you the edge. Because if you are the person who's AI and then another person comes into the dinner and actually don't talk exactly those topics as you do, that gives a disconnect for people to trust. Because every time I meet her, the same goes with you, Ashley. The discussions that we're having, even the tone of voice on video, in person, and in writing is the same of what you would do when you meet the person for real. So I think this is so far ahead, and people will start understanding how crucial it is to have those human connections because that transaction is so 2020. it's gone. If we were to move to the actionable tips for that stronger audience relationship, what are the main things that you cover in the book that people could just pick up and use?
Yeah. One thing you can do today, which I rant about this, it's like my latest very tactical rant. Be transparent in your CTAs. Stop using the learn more CTA. I don't know what's going to happen when I click that button. Am I reading a blog? Am I contacting sales? Am I watching a demo? Am I going somewhere else? Like, I don't know what's happening. So, step 1, replace learn more with whatever will actually happen when I click that button. So, read the blog, watch the demo, contact sales. In that vein, give your audience the option not to buy. So quit relying on implicit intent. You are not going to trick anyone into buying, right? Like, oh, I'm going to hit learn more and people are accidentally going to contact sales. No, they're not. No, they're not. Right? Like if oh, show me the pricing and I go in and it says contact sales. That is
Gone.
not what I thought I was doing and I do not wish to do it, right? So give people the option not to buy. If there's and you'll see this, I do this on LinkedIn where I'll say this is free and ungated, or register here for free. Like, yes, you have to put in an email address, whatever it is, right? Or buy a ticket. I don't just put join me. Okay, do I have to pay to join you? Do I have to register? Do I have to sign up?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to click something? No. Join for free, register to attend, buy your ticket, like something in that way. And so and again, same thing with the book. Pre-order your copy of my book. Not want to learn more? What? How do I? Are you going to give me a blog? Do I have to buy the book? Is the book even out? No, you have to pre-order a copy,
Yeah.
right? Not even just grab a copy of the book. Pre-order a copy of the book so that people know when it comes out, right? So those are 2 things today that you can do, regardless of whether you buy the book, regardless of whether you finish watching this episode. Remove all your learn more CTAs to make them explicit and give people an option not to buy. So that's the first thing. Second thing, actionable, you can start doing this today. And I talk about this a lot in the book in terms of how to start building those relationships. But you and I chatted about it at the beginning of the episode around LinkedIn. Start commenting. Build those relationships. Leave meaty comments. You get 1,250 characters in your comments. And I know that because I frequently max out my characters in the comments. So I do know exactly how many characters you get, which is a very nerdy thing for me to know. But leave comments, actually share a point of view. You don't have to come out with the smartest thing. You can give examples. So, Laura does this very well. She did it on the episode where she was like, yeah, I'll give an example of something that we mismatched where we thought the community was a, bottom of funnel or a retention element in the funnel, but instead we found out that it's actually something more in the, if we're mapping it in the consideration phase or top of funnel. So when I talk about the funnel and where community fits in the funnel, Laura could then comment on my post and say, funny enough, we actually saw the same thing, that it's not a post-purchase or a retention aspect or tactic. It's something that can be used throughout the audience journey. That's a perfect comment for her to leave, and builds on my comment, helps us build a relationship that we think the same. So comment on LinkedIn. If you need help doing that, ping me. I actually just wrote a post with a bunch of examples, so I'll send you the carousel. So that's something that you
Nice.
can do today. From a larger perspective, I talk a lot in the book. There's 3 key frameworks. The playground framework, so mapping the audience journey and creating an audience journey as a playground instead of mapping it to a funnel. The social media spectrum, which really helps you think about how you're showing up both as a brand and as humans on the brand, behind the brand on social media. And then thought leadership and what it takes to be a thought leader, how you build thought leaders, and how those are different in terms of attributes and impact across social media or subject matter experts, influencers, and then true thought leaders. And obviously the entire underpinning of that is trust. Again, the thing you can start doing today, shifting that mindset to building long-term trust, affinity, and relationships, not just focusing on short-term transactions. So those are super nitty-gritty things you could do today, regardless of whether you buy the book. And then obviously, if you buy the book, there's a bunch more strategies and frameworks to help you think more holistically about your long-term marketing mix and strategy.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a lot of work put into the actual book. Ashley, where can people get the book?
Yeah, so the book is available for pre-order on Amazon. It is also available from the publisher's website, Kogan Page, Kogan, and then space Page. I did not anticipate how hard it would be to spell that off the top of my head.
It's on
Easier to
Amazon.
type. But yes, you can get the book on Amazon. It's also, again, if you search, it's on Barnes & Noble, etc. But yeah, Amazon and then the Kogan Page website is the place to go.
Is it released already, or is it a wait list to get the book?
So you can pre-order it. It will come out in May. So
Nice.
the digital version will be available May 3rd, and then physical copies will be shipped out May 27th. So yep,
Fantastic.
pre-order now, and then you'll receive your copy either digital or physically in May.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. It's
I'm
so
looking forward to
exciting.
it too. And I will say, obviously, Laura is featured, so you will have your own copy that is signed, and you can literally point to your lovely name in the book. So if you want to learn from smart people like Laura,
Oh, this is so fun. I've never been featured in a book. So this is new. This is fantastic. And it's so much work, Ashley. It's like writing a book. It's one of the hardest things. It's like growing up a baby, more or less. I Before we go away and say goodbye to everybody, we had a comment in the chat from D, which I want to pull up. And I'm not sure if you still want to talk about this or yet want to talk about this, but he's commenting that Ashley's going to be on the next season of Drive to Survive. So get ready for some F1 based content. What's
so,
that?
so for the folks who did not see the exciting Atlassian announcement yesterday, we are now an official title sponsor and partner with Williams Racing. So both from a technology standpoint and from a practices standpoint, we are helping them with their transformation. So D is actually manifesting this Drive to Survive appearance. I am not going to be, this is like the one takeaway. Everyone's like, Ashley's going to be on TV. And I'm like, guys,
You'd
I
be
in fact
good.
am not a very good driver. So funny enough, I do ride motorcycles, and my motorcycle skills are mediocre at best. But my husband keeps trying to tell me that I need to go to the motorcycle track to improve my cornering skills.
Okay.
So D, on one hand, you're manifesting real hard. The rumors are not true. I will not be on Drive to Survive. On the other hand, I do have some skills that could be transferable if Atlassian needs someone to really step up, and partner with the Williams racing drivers. But yeah, Atlassian is taking a big step with the F1 team. But so far, I will not be participating in that beyond championing the amazing work that my colleagues and the Williams racers team are driving.
This is so exciting. All this, but for Atlassian, but I could see you do that. That could
I
be
know.
fun.
Do you know what's funny? So again, I mean, pit racers, when you talk about things that are on brand, and I'll circle it all the way back to your like how far off the problem can you get, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, we are the teamwork brand. Our stock ticker is team. Our mission is to unleash the potential of every team. And on one hand, you might think like, oh, sponsoring, F1 or doing an F1 partnership, like, what does
What?
that have to do with teamwork? And I'm like, have you seen pit crews? Like, that is the epitome of communication, collaboration, proper process, like having the right tools for the right job. I mean, it it's almost too on the nose, which
Yeah,
I love. Everyone internally was like, "This is the best thing ever." So yeah, it's very exciting. It's very on brand, and it does dovetail very closely with the how far off the problem can you get. It's like find those moments of excitement and speed that do happen to dovetail perfectly with your message.
very nice. Ashley, if people wanted to follow you, of course, LinkedIn, but
LinkedIn.
do you do content anywhere else besides your book and LinkedIn? If it's that was not enough, but how can people contact you?
Primarily LinkedIn is the place. I do write, I do podcasts, I do speak at conferences, etc. But pretty much all of that content, both from a recap standpoint and a promotion standpoint, ends up on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Everybody, go follow Ashley. Thank you so much for attending. If you've got any questions or want to pre order the book, want to find it, whatever, reach out to Ashley on LinkedIn or me. I'll help you out to find her if, in case you can't. Thank you so much for the session. It was really, really good. Can't wait for the book.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me, and yeah, I can't wait to see more episodes from the New York office.
Thank you so much, everyone.